Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Social Confoes. You just saw us dancing. We are at episode, what, Chanduk?
100,
Episode
100
100.
episodes of
Can you
Social
believe it? Like
Confoes.
100 episode, at least 100 hours of content in the past 2+ years.
How does that make you feel, Diego?
Interesting. Actually, quite, I'd say, I don't think accomplished is the right word, but content would be something like having achieved something for such a long time. If you go back to the principle of consistency that we've talked about at length over
Yeah,
many episodes, like
yeah,
especially when it comes to content creation, habits, um, anything actually, the consistency part is where people drop off. And to have achieved like 100 episodes so far, almost weekly, we had a short period where we kind of had some hit and misses, but we picked it back up to
I
have
think
achieved
that's the
that.
important part. I want to dive into that though. It's we went off rails a little bit, and I think there's two things that happened. One was the schedule. For me, it didn't work anymore because I was traveling, which is around the same time next month. It might happen again, so I really have to figure that one out. But the second one, we changed time slots. So this show, usually the recording runs on Tuesday night, but because of guests in Europe, we've
Yeah.
experimented with doing it in the afternoon as well, and that kind of it took a little bit away of the usual people that tune into the show because they were kind of geared towards a certain time slot in their week, and we moved away from that, which made it difficult as well. But I think we went from a very enthusiastic, moving kind of ritual into a slump. And the way we got out of the slump, I think, is the most impressive part. Because if you look back now, how often we have guests compared to like last year at certain spots, it was like we didn't have a guest for a month or 2 months.
Yeah. I think we worked on the system. Like
Yeah.
systematically, we added a time slot to accommodate guests from other time zones, or just some even in our time zone kind of took
Yeah,
the
I
afternoon
mean, there's a
slots.
lot of
Yeah.
South American guests lately, so that's
Interesting.
interesting as well. Yeah,
Yeah. And the other
yeah,
thing is, as you mentioned, like the system we did, we kind of actually activated our networks our active networks to kind of book guests ahead of time. We actually used the bookings link, the Calendly link, to
yeah,
like block slots and automate that system. So we slowly build the system to kind of keep the friction low to continue it weekly.
yeah. And there's still so much potential. You know,
Yeah, we just barely
that's
scratched the surface.
yeah. So there's so much we still could do with the show, and I really, to be honest, I don't mind. I don't mind at all the document over create aspect of it. There's so many nuggets. There's so much evergreen content that I'll be able to look back 4 years from now and still take some nuggets out and things that were discussed on social confos that are relevant in 2 years from now. So
Yeah,
I think that's also what makes me excited as well.
we basically only ran 10 meters of the 100-meter sprint.
Okay. So you're basically saying we're going for 1,000 episodes. That's basically what you're saying.
We've only ran 10 to 15 meters of this sprint.
Okay. No, I mean that's great news. That puts us out there, and that also creates a situation where we're kind of making the commitment for a decade. So I think and there's also no part of me. that is shouting like, "No, I don't want to do this with Diego." I mean, I think that's the important thing because there could be a situation where one of us would be like, "Yeah, it's time to find a new co-host,
Mm.
or a new concept or a new show." And I think the commitment to do this together, and even if we have to switching it up together, I think that makes me excited as well.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily. Obviously, there can be spin-offs, which we'll talk about a bit more in a bit. But obviously, we'll adjust as we go. We'll try new concepts. Look, even StreamYard updated, right, with these sub-handle features. So we gotta adapt with AI things coming up. Video. Recently, I saw like Nvidia published like eye tracking video. Like we need to adapt with the technology as we produce content over the next 5 to 10 years. The way we produce and create content is going to evolve. If you look at the
And the
past five to
topics, the
yeah
topics as
to the
well.
past 5 to 10 years and how content creation has evolved in social media in general, we are like in this trajectory. So it's adapt.
So two things I want to talk about when it comes to this. The first one, which we'll discuss later, is how you feel the direction that is going, and how is that going to impact our show. And the second one is, what do you think was the first thing that I asked ChatGPT?
So to cover your first question on where we're going or where we see this going, did I catch that correctly? Because I saw
Yeah,
a
where
chat from
where do you
Mario
see
coming.
where yeah where do you see this coming in? We can also yeah no we can also put in the comments today. I'm in a good mood to
Yeah,
incorporate
Mario,
some.
how you doing? And
Yeah,
congrats! I saw the announcement. If you're wondering what announcement, check out his LinkedIn and Facebook. Got an
yes,
important
congrats,
position.
Mario. Very, very, very nice. Yeah.
So the way I see it going as we go forward with the show is definitely we're going to continue to create. I think a few things may happen in the future. People will start recognizing recognize us as host concepts production wise and approach us to create spin-off content maybe. The other aspect is as we evolve, maybe when we reach 200 episode, we're finally gonna get a more broader close-knit community, and we can start working on maybe behind the scenes gated content as well. But we'll still try to keep it free. If you look at the evolution of how content creation creators evolved on YouTube, I've watched a lot of channels. Like the first 3 years is basically nothing, because we're doing this
Interesting. Interesting.
we're,
Very
we're doing
interesting.
this kind of like out of our own pocket. As you know, there is no commercial side to this as we do this weekly. So to the viewers, if you haven't realized, this is fully Sean Luke and Diego back, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So
We're
this
also slowly gonna change that gradually over the next, because we had 100 episodes without putting sponsors and those kind of things in. I think gradually you'll see some change this year, because
yeah, definitely.
I now feel like it's first of all, you don't want to put sponsors in too early, and I think this is one of the things that a lot of people underestimate. Even people with a big following, they're like, I should monetize as soon as possible. But there has to be a structure which makes the monetization kind of sustainable as well. There needs to
Sustainable,
be,
but also it
yeah,
should also align with our values. Like
exactly.
a lot has happened. If you especially we cover the crypto scene a lot, the NFT scene, the
So
metaverse scene.
you don't want an NFT as our sponsor?
It
Just
could,
kidding, just
but
kidding, just kidding.
but referencing you shared the a coffee seller video with me today, like where he kind of you know tried to scam a scammer and basically to show everyone how little due diligence people do to take on sponsorship or paid advertising. So that's something we need to keep into high regard as well.
Yeah.
as we vet. Obviously, I think locally, if we're looking at local sponsors, it's a bit easier because of the you know network effect. I think
I would think
if you disagree.
I'm actually I'm thinking of two companies that are internationally known that
Mm,
are valuable for our audience. That's what I'm looking towards. And that could be there could be some local players as well because they want to reach out to the rest of the world.
yeah.
But I also strongly believe there's a possibility for us, especially because we have basically I think I do want to have more guests from Africa these next 50 episodes. I think that's gonna be a mission for me
Now
to
that you
have
mention it,
more
have we had
because
anyone from
we
there?
have
No,
had
eh?
we have had Asian guests, we
Yeah,
have had
we haven't
European
covered
guests,
any
South
Africa.
American like North America, but we haven't had. I can't remember having an African guest,
No, the
and I do
closest one to
feel
Africa, but this is basically what Spain was.
yeah, which is the south of Spain, which
Yeah.
just doesn't count, Diego. It doesn't count.
No, I'm just
No,
using our
yeah,
geographic knowledge.
yeah.
The proximity to
The
Africa.
proximity, it might have been the best proximity, but definitely not. And I feel like we're missing out on that part.
Oh, I
Uh,
can definitely
yeah,
hook someone up
yeah. So
ASAP
I
from
think I
Africa.
think that's definitely something I'm really interested in, and I really wanna work towards. And I
Then
think
we can say we have guests from every
then
habitable
we can say
continent.
we have had guests from every continent. Wow, we need to
Habitable
have we?
continent.
Yeah, sorry. Well, we also have to cover Australia as well. So, but I think there's
I,
some
I
guests there.
I can have Australia covered.
Yeah,
Actually, it's already on my
kind
watch
of.
list.
If you look at it from this perspective, we have done the show in that continent because you were there. So I feel that also counts, right? Or was
Yeah, no,
that?
I was in New Zealand, so
Yeah.
that doesn't count as the continent
Does
of
well, hold on.
Australia.
Does New Zealand to which continent does New Zealand belong? This is an
That's an
interesting
interesting question. I
discussion
actually
because for
don't.
me it does feel like it belongs to the continent of Australia from a continent perspective. This is
That's
really
it's
tricky.
interesting. I've never thought about it actually,
If if you
because
would put me Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and you would put as this question out as okay, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire doesn't have an open question, so there will be four answers which you could derive it from.
mm,
But still, this is a really tricky question.
yeah, because I
Yeah.
don't think I did walk through a museum, like a historical museum in New Zealand. If I can recall correctly, it wasn't part of the mainland Australia. I think it erupted like through volcanic activity, like two plates
Okay.
crashing to each other, and that kind of created the landmass of New Zealand.
Hold on. There's only one correct way. Oh, there are two
ChatGPT.
ways. There are two correct ways. There are two
uh,
correct ways to figure this out,
let's
right?
go. ChatGPT.
Uh,
I'm
and
doing
there,
it now.
oh, you're doing it?
Is
Okay, okay,
New
okay. No,
Zealand
no, no, no. Ask the question: to which continent does New Zealand
uh,
belong? That's the
continent?
question that we want to ask Chat GPT. And for those who don't know about Chat GPT, it's an AI open software where you can chat with AI artificial intelligence, and it derives the answers
Okay,
from the
okay.
internet.
So
Okay, go ahead.
So, what ChatGPT says, New Zealand is located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean and is considered to be part of the continent of Australasia, which includes the countries of Australia and the islands of the Pacific. So, Australia in itself is not only
Yeah,
Australia, it's
so
not
the
just a
continent
continent.
is not called Australia, is the continent called Australasia?
Yeah, Australasia. Are you
So,
sure?
no.
Yeah,
uh, hold on.
yes, I'm sure. Mm, it's
Okay, so
Australia.
Google, when I ask Google, what are it already pre-filled my answers. So I give Google an extra point over ChatGPT right now because Google was able to
Oh, here we go.
reveal.
I have some
Okay,
clarification
okay,
here.
okay.
Australia is indeed a continent. It is the smallest and the flattest of the seven continents, and it's also the world's largest island. The term Australasia is often used to describe the region that includes Australia and the surrounding islands in the Pacific, including New Zealand. So it is kind of a counter, like as a continent, as a landmass,
Yes.
it is the
Okay,
continent, but it includes the region as a whole to describe.
okay,
What does Google say?
okay. What does Google say? It says it belongs under Ocean.
Oceanic, yeah,
Help me out.
ocean,
Oceania.
yeah, Oceania, yeah. That's often considered a region, as I know it, but not a continent, because continents, how I understand it, are land masses. You're muted, by the way.
Okay, so this is confusing because basically I overlooked something here. Because if you ask what are the continents, it doesn't show up, right?
Yeah.
Oceania doesn't show up. So when you ask where does New Zealand belong, it says Oceania.
Okay, so I
Oceania.
I asked
Yeah.
ChatGPT now what are the seven continents of the world. So we got Africa, Antarctica, Asia, Australia in brackets, sometimes referred to as Oceania. So you may be onto something there.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Cross
Okay.
cross checking facts. So
Okay. Okay. So even Google and Chat GPT are confused right now. So fair game. Fair game. At least we've learned something new today. So next time you want to confuse somebody, you just ask them to
it's
what
New Zealand.
continent, yeah,
Yeah.
to
What
what
continent is New
continent does
Zealand
New
from?
Zealand belong? Yeah, then you really have people like confused. And if they say, if they give the proper answer, you're like, yeah, but if I say the seven continents, which continents do you say? And then they'll completely get confused as well. So a great segue to move back towards the show because we were talking about celebrating our 100th episode of Social Confoes. And thank you, Tevin, for the congratulations. So today's episode is going to be real fun because we're just going to do a recap of what it means to do 100 podcast episodes, things that we've learned, um, things that are going to happen. And have you ever put into Chat GPT how to take over the world?
I haven't pushed the boundaries of ChatGPT, but I've seen Twitter threads that kind of push the boundaries and it went pretty dark and dystopian. So I myself have not tried it. So
So I asked ChatGPT a question, and I asked the question, which basically was a question to sum up stuff, and it just started summing up, and it started one, and it gave a question, and it stopped there. It just stopped with a one. So I was waiting for two until
yeah.
how many two, and then
And
somebody told me like you have to uh, go beyond that. So I was like, aside from one, what other options do you have? And then all of a sudden it spit out five more, which was really interesting. It was kind of like the AI testing me if like I would be satisfied with that single answer. It's really interesting.
yeah, you need to be very specific and descriptive if you want specific things. But coming back to it, what was the first thing you asked ChatGPT when you first tried it
So
out last
so
week?
what do you think?
My guess is it's definitely something related to Suriname because that was the first thing you did with Midjourney as well.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
I'm not sure because it could go in any direction.
Okay, so I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say, but I think I'm allowed to say that my wife now works for an organization helping the wildlife in Suriname, and they organize Earth Hour every year. and they have a specific theme for this year. So as the second thing I put in, I actually put in something for her that she could use promotionally in a line of work. Um, I'm not sure if she used it though, but it was still interesting to see the results from that, to see how much ChatGPT knows about Suriname. And they're pretty good. The answers were kind of generic in some sense, but they were really creative. And like our last week guest said, sometimes it's good to, like, when you're stuck, you know, to use it to get unstuck. But the first thing that I asked ChatGPT was indeed Suriname related to some extent, because it wasn't a question about Suriname. It was a question about a particular meaning of a particular word. So what it meant, if a person was that word, what word would it be?
What a particular word? Is
It's
it a
really
positive?
close to home. It's positive and it's really close to home. You have worked with that word.
I have. Hmm.
Yeah, you've actually worked with that word. With that word.
So, what does it mean if someone is blank? Something like that?
Yes.
What does
What
it
does it
mean?
mean if you say that a person is blank?
And I've used this before.
Yeah, you've worked with this word extensively.
Oh my God. Chat, help us out here.
No,
What?
no. So you're gonna figure it out now. If a person is, this is the answer ChatGPT gave me. If a person is described as blank, it means that they are beyond words or explanation, and that it is difficult or impossible to describe them or their qualities accurately. The term is often used to express the sense of awe or reverence, and suggests that the person or their qualities are too good or profound to be expressed in words.
Now I'm even more confused. Am I thinking too far?
You're taking way too far. It's really close to my heart, and you've worked with it as well. Thanks for everybody who's congratulating on the 100th episode, by the way. Yeah,
No,
with the
I'm drawing.
definition, with the
I'm drawing
definition,
blanks.
you don't know which word it is.
I'm
Too
drawing
great,
blanks here.
too great or extreme to be expressed in words.
Ineffable?
Yeah.
Oh, now I get it. Yeah, we yes, we've worked with this word. I was thinking in the context of this show, but when you said that again slowly, I remember
Yeah, if
the
you
process we went
when
through
it's
when
yeah
the
when it's in the
definition.
context,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
different than when you just separate and take it
yeah.
out.
No,
So
no, it makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah, what does it mean to be ineffable? Got it.
yeah. So my first question to ChatGPT was, what does it mean if you say that a person is ineffable? And of course, I sent it to the team in Slack, just to share it, because I thought it was fun. But yeah, so basically, if you look back at the first 100 episodes, we started off a lot of personal guests, a lot of people that we've connected with and we wanted to have on the show. And then we moved more towards international guests, to the point that at this point, we don't always even personally know the guests that we invite on the show. And that has been bringing us interesting uh, stories. We've had stories of people who were just about to change country and going to live somewhere completely else. We've had stories of people who had given up on modern medicine and decided to take their own health into their own hands and do research. We've had authors, we have had alumni, we have had almost from every continent guests on this show. And I think that's the whole idea of social confoes, is to kind of keep it very broad with a lot of possibilities and a different kind of audience as
And
well.
perspectives, like,
Yeah.
for example, last week, hearing the perspective of what it's like in Argentina. Messi, Argentina just won the World Cup in Qatar, but hearing that from someone living there, actually, that our inflation rate is actually outperforming theirs, like even with the rising gas prices we had today. Like,
Yeah, our currency is outperforming theirs in the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years. It's insane.
yeah, just brings perspective, like, all right, we have it bad, but other countries, other people kind of have it way worse. Like El Salvador, for example. Yeah, you see the mainstream media on the adoption of something like Bitcoin, for example. But when you talk to a local, they are like, what is the actual adoption rate like? How are people seeing that? It brings all that into perspective. And yeah, for this year, definitely we need some perspectives from Africa. We need some perspective from Australia. We're gonna get those. That's definitely on the to-do list for 2023. And then we can say by the end of 2023, going into 24, we've covered every habitable continent. Because I don't think we're gonna get Antarctica.
Well, we could try. Like, I don't want to go all Mr. Beast, but we could definitely try. Which also brings me to, I don't know if you've seen. I don't know if it's still his latest video. Have you seen the video of Mr. Beast curing 1,000 people from blindness?
I've seen the tweets and some news about it, but I haven't checked out the video myself.
Well,
I saw there was some controversy around it, but
so it's
uh,
it's pretty interesting. So basically, what he found out is that there is a procedure, which is, I wouldn't say necessary easy procedure, but a very short procedure for several people, a certain kind of blindness. So this is a treatable blindness. Of course, not everybody that's blind has a treatable blindness. So you have to take that into context. But there's actually a lot of people who have treatable blindness, have something that's kind of covering part of their eye, and to that
like
they
is it
can't
similar
see.
to like the LASIK treatment, like that people get who wear glasses and then
No, no, no. This is way. I think I don't know if the technology. It didn't look like the technology was new. Maybe the method was, but I think it was mainly the understanding that some kind of blindness is curable. Is in the sense curable that there is an operation that can remove the blindness.
yeah, because
So
there's
these are actual
degrees of
people.
blindness, like
Yeah,
color blindness, like
yeah.
certain types of
So
blindness.
there's a certain type of blindness that is treatable, and there are enough people in the world who could actually be cured of blindness. And just that thought, because when you go blind, like you're kind of left to yourself. But also, a lot of people in the video have been blind for their whole life. Some got blind, some have been blind for like forever, and I think a couple must have been born. But I can't. Sorry, I don't have the statistics. It's not that they were fully, I could fully like research that either or something, but just the idea that there's a possibility to cure blindness, and that you take the effort. I mean, you can do so many things with your money, and this was so much. He was surprised that it went so well, in the sense that he tweeted out like, "Whoa, I'm surprised that this got so many views." But from a content perspective, curing 1,000 people from blindness or giving an island to one person, I mean, let's be honest, which sounds better? I think curing 1,000 people from blindness sounds a lot better than saying like, "Hey, I built a Willy Wonka chocolate factory." Like the entertainment value of the Willy Wonka chocolate factory is higher,
Yeah.
but yeah, but curing 1,000 people from blindness, that's like that you do that with your money, with your YouTube money. That's that you're with your creator money. That's awesome. It's such a feel good kind of. It's more of a feel good scenario than giving a $10,000 tip to somebody. So
Yeah.
I feel like that's it's inspiring. I truly, and there's also there have been people like with all big creators, there have been people that have been trying to cancel Mr. Beast,
No,
and that's
Mr.
kind of,
Beats is a category in its own right.
yeah, but it really upsets me though. Like that people would, of course, if there's something that's very disgraceful, but now they're just attacking because they can't cancel him. They're attacking kind of like the friends and the people that are actually appearing in the videos, and that's kind of, yeah, what's worrying about society in general is this. It's okay that we're going. I feel it's okay that we're going towards tribalism in some sense, because it will make people feel more connected and better connected. But on the other hand, I don't like tribalism where you kind of, your aim is to destroy other tribes. That's when I get worried.
Oh well, that's the thing with how accessible the internet has become for people to share their opinions, and sometimes it's not even opinions, it's just straight up hate. There's always like people from the other end of the spectrum kind of trying to find a fault in what people are doing, trying to see the wrong or to talk it down or something. So this brings us actually in the context, like especially as creators, being in a public space like that, uh, vulnerable to, I won't call it attacks, but criticism from all direction. It also affects your health in a certain degree. And the past month, December, November, December, we had a lot of this topic as well, like health, physical health, mental health, the whole spectrum of health. And you wanted to bring this up today as well. So talking about mental health specifically. So
Yeah, I
what
think
how do you
so.
see that, having
So
done this
there's
for
there's a
one attempt?
general problem in the sense that um, we as and I'm saying we because I've been in situations where I do that as well, or I have done that in the past. We are often in a situation where when you put in a lot of work into something, it's pretty easy to become recognized for it. And when you become recognized for it, there's a Dutch saying that high trees get a lot of wind. Um, and when you do a lot, and when you're in the forefront of anything that happens, you kind of become the face of whatever the operation is. And when you become the face, all the anger, all the positive is geared towards you, but all the anger and
Yeah, all the
negativity
negative as well. Like,
as well. And this puts us in a very uncomfortable position because you have people that just want to work hard and people who are there for the show. They kind of they get energy from
yeah,
being like,
they chase
hey,
the fame. I actually was
X,
listening
yeah,
to a podcast with Pomp today as well
yeah,
on chasing fame and everything.
yeah.
But yeah, I get what you
So,
mean.
so it's really annoying in the sense that I mean I see it around me quite often. I have some people that I know. They're awesome. Their work ethic is the best of all of the people that I know. They're smart. They do their research. They do their due diligence. They even towards me are much more respectful than I am towards them, which is something that I'm very self-aware of, and I look a lot more. I look at it a lot more because I reflect a lot now, seeing like how sometimes I'm being impatient, I'm saying something that could come across as disrespectful, and these people they never do that, and they also always try to stay out of the limelight, which means that often opportunities that go to other people aren't always deserved that they go to other people. They don't get the opportunities because they don't put themselves out there. And like there's also a personal development segment which is like, yeah, you have to network, you have to put yourself out there. But
Well, I yes, I get that perspective, but I also think for some people it's a conscious choice as well, like to not be in the limelight. Yes, certain opportunities only cross your path if you're in a certain degree of light, but at the other end of the spectrum, there are also opportunities that you only can get in the shade, so to speak. I remember way back in the beginning, like who did we have on? Uh, can't remember quite who, but he was talking about the concept of the people who move in the shadow. You have the spotlight people and the shadow powers. I think was the word that he used, and I think there's a place for both, and you don't necessarily need to be in the spotlight to get well-deserved opportunities or recognition. Some people get that satisfaction, that contentment from seeing others thrive through their support. So
so
yeah,
and
but
then but then you still get to a certain point that if you do put a certain amount of effort, you're gonna get recognized. And when you get recognized, you can get there's two things that can happen. There's like you get overworked, you get stressed out, or you just don't have enough time on your hands and you have to make choices.
I was about to say that's where I think priorities come into play, right?
Yeah,
uh, with the limited time. I think I remember you having a talk one time and you described the time we have in a day, about the
yeah.
seconds or the allocation. I can't remember the exact number,
Yeah,
but
no, I mean it's funny that I basically studied leisure studies, and like the running joke with leisure studies, I will be like, oh, so you're studying leisure studies, so you must be really good with your spare time, and and then I think that
and you
was the
shadows
running
be
joke.
like, what
Yeah,
spare time?
and yeah, my spare time for me, it's like it's divided between my family and my personal passion projects, and when you start realizing that, it's like I slave away when it comes to passion projects. I don't. So here's the fun fact: like when I was younger, I would play a lot of Football Manager, and when I was sick recently, right before it or during, I decided to download the game for Mac because it used to be a PC game, but now there's a workaround to do it with Mac. So I found a workaround and actually got it. And when I was sick, I played it quite a lot. But as soon as I got better, I haven't touched the game since. Just because if I have to choose between Splinterlands and Football Manager, like 10 years ago, I would easily say like Football Manager. There would be never be a game I'm more interested in. But Splinterlands has a play to earn aspect. And
So
it's
is that the
so
main driving force that you keep?
okay, I have to say it's actually a really cool game. Like the innovations that they do keep you hooked to the game. So it's basically like a normal game. They have figured out like the attention span of what normal games do and what they do with updates to get people that are hooked on the
Yeah,
hooked.
there's a game theory
Yeah.
applied. Like,
But there's also an aspect that for me I've already have my return of investment on the game in a certain sense. And even though it's getting harder because it's a bear market, so as long as they're not like there isn't a rush on crypto, you have to be wary that this game you have to be really good to make a living from it. Like if you want to make a living from it, you probably will have to do it by also streaming your gameplay, also writing posts about it, and being just generally if you play Splinterlands like 40 hours a week
yeah, it's
and you
not.
tweet about it and you write posts about it on Hive and you do debosses on it and you go on Splinterlands on the Splinterlands gameplay websites and you post about it and you do a stream about it. So you stream on Twitch and you upload your streams to TreeSpeak or YouTube. Yes, you will definitely be able to make a living from it. But if you're an occasional player like me that only plays like only play in the weekends. That's the only moment that I have time. And if I have a busy weekend, I don't even get to play that much in the weekend as well. So
That plays back into the commitment and consistency, right?
yeah,
Because that Danny is bringing up a good
yeah,
point here. Like looking back a year ago, like when we played Gods Unchained back
yeah,
then, uh, we managed to do it like for what, 2 3 months
yeah,
weekly, and yeah, it was fun at the time, but it was also very nascent, kind of
yeah,
upcoming. So it's still very fresh, new. You're learning things,
yeah,
um, and we've kind of coupled that with another hook of trying our quote unquote streaming career, which kind of
yeah.
didn't work out, I guess. But for example, Danny got to like the 100 Twitch subscribers pretty fast. Uh,
See, so it's there. So if you
yeah,
commit to it, really
if you
commit to,
commit and
yeah,
create the content around it, because the game is just a medium, it's just a tool, it's what you
yeah,
do around it that kind of creates the community, creates the audience, creates the income streams, if that's
yeah.
something you're looking
And
for.
also you have to be committed to the community itself. So you have to be
Yeah,
in the Twitch channels. You have to be in the Discord channels. You have to be in follow Twitch streams from other players. You have to be on
Yeah, you
Twitter,
need to
interacting with the
engage.
community. You have to engage.
Yeah,
You really have to engage to make it work. And I think that's something from a social Confoes perspective.
yeah, like
Uh,
the
yeah,
memes he was making.
yeah, but
Like,
Danny, that's also playing in to the actual the
yeah, to the
community.
community.
Yeah, and I think that that sense, like there's definitely growth for social Confoes. We have to find a way to also do a little bit more with that, whether it's the guests that we have had on the show, whether that's a group. I think we could even try a LinkedIn group. That would be really interesting to pull that off. I think a LinkedIn group would actually get me excited because it will get me more committed. So that's something I'm definitely thinking about. But you have to figure out a platform. You could do Twitter communities, you could do a LinkedIn community, you could do a Facebook community. So there are different approaches.
Yeah,
Discord, but
or
yeah,
in person meetup.
yeah,
The same
in person
podcast.
meetup.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
listening to from Palm today. Like,
yeah.
he also made an announcement. Like, he's doing a conference meetup in Miami to bring all or like a lot of the guests he had on the show there, and like actually in person network, uh, and to bring in the
Yeah, like I
community that
said,
was
within
just
the first 5 years, we'll do something
yeah,
like
no,
that as well. Yeah,
I,
I do
I'm
feel
just
we're
throwing an idea
yeah,
out there that I just
yeah,
happened to see, like, and then he's
yeah,
inviting the community to attend to
yeah,
meet the people in person as well.
yeah.
Like,
So there's some ground for that as well. But I think you also want to grow a safe space where people can talk to each other, talk about
yeah,
certain topics. And I feel like those kind of communities, it does provide. You need to have a certain commitment. Like we're currently building a community for the social media conference, and we're letting Doreen, who was also a guest here, one of the earliest episode, we're doing letting her do the most work. So we're
yeah,
slowly changing that as well because I already
but
see
people
that.
underestimate it. It's
Yeah,
not just
it's
the
it's it's
managers
crazy.
that they're like moderating, trying to
Yeah.
come up with activities, but you need to again
With
engage,
Hive Chat
participate.
as well. Like Hive Chat now Hive Chat I think has run over 150 weeks without. Yeah, that's insane. No, I
Oh,
think it's
we're a year
125.
behind. Yeah, oh,
No,
we're a half year behind.
125.
We're a half year
125.
behind.
Yeah, I think Hive Chat has been active. So basically, it's a Twitter chat that hasn't missed an episode for the last 2.5 years. It's insane. And the two women that make it possible, it was for a very long time. It was just Tracy, and I feel we should get Tracy. Jennifer, I think we had on the show. Tracy, we've never had on the show, but I'm gonna convince her to come to the show because her story is really, really interesting, and she has been like insane to make that possible, and then also a little bit of help, and especially now that Jennifer is in, the team has expanded, and it's actually two people, and I count myself like for a quarter of a person because I barely make it to the show every week. Um, so I'm really excited how they kind of build that, and they're also we also need a community for that. But then you also have to increase the commitment from the host, and I think that's one of the things that people underestimate about creating a community is really getting people involved, also being open to criticism, and especially criticism from the people who are closest to you, who really support you.
Yeah,
And
it's supportive feedback, as
yeah,
you speak. You shouldn't dismiss it outright because people mention these things just, to improve on it and to stay engaged.
yeah. And then I think at the beginning of the year I overeat. So basically, when I closed off last year, I felt like I had it figured out. Like, okay, this is how I'm gonna run everything. This is how I'm gonna approach everything. And then the starting of this year, I took two extra projects under my wings. But then all everything that I was already doing, and you have to understand both these projects were within the scope of my like mind map. So I have a mind map for myself, which is
Like,
five
were
different
they
elements.
added like passion projects or like
No, so
business projects?
I have like a mind map that has like 5 different elements.
Mm.
So the first element is ineffable, which is my business, my
Yeah,
main
that's the
business.
business.
Yeah. So the second element is the family business, because at the end of the day, my parents are getting older. I'm an
Yeah,
only child. So there's a responsibility. There's no operational responsibility. Don't get that twisted. I mean, operationally the companies are running by amazing people, like amazing people that are just putting in the work to make those companies run and putting out the same amount and effort and time that I'm putting into Ineffable, they're putting in to those companies. But from a strategic perspective, like where the company should go, I do feel like I have a responsibility there. Then the third one is my personal kind of brand, where all the passion projects fill into, which includes social conflows. So social conflows, a couple of other concepts that all fall into the Chaluk SR brand kind of um, uh, cluster of the mind map. Then you have the fourth, which is Suriname. Like there's a lot of passion projects to develop Suriname and projects that I'm doing which from a sustainability perspective should make Suriname succeed more and more. So there can be some overlap between the Jean-Luc SR and the Suriname, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And one of those projects, for instance, that was in that category, has been since COVID started. I haven't even touched it, and there's still every 2 3 months there's somebody like, "Hey, is this project still on?" But there's just no time to commit to the project. And those are situations that I'm dealing with. And then the fifth element, which is basically the most important one, it's my private life. It's like my family. It's like my personal health. It's like everything that comes within. So those 5 elements are basically what happens. And as soon as it gets too busy, like with 2 of them, like the rest, it kind of collapses completely. And it's very easy for a lot of people to say like, "Hey, you do too much. Like cut some of them off," which I do, but they would cut more off. They wouldn't start those things to begin with. But for me, from a personality perspective, that's how I stay busy. That's kind of how I get my energy. If I would cut like 60% of what I'm doing now, it could go to 100 real quick because the motivation to do certain projects would just disappear. And that's from a personal perspective, that's one of the things that I'm struggling with the most.
it's interesting. Like, yeah, each person needs to decide like where they draw the line for themselves, and I guess you and your immediate circles that know you best. So I won't presume to, suggest, cut everything out and see how it goes, or
Yeah,
like
also you will be cutting out. So here's the problem.
when
You're
wait,
gonna cut out.
when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
were like
yeah.
the week you're down with the flu, like for a week, 1.5 week, right? Like,
Yeah, it was over a week.
was it because at that point you couldn't do anything with in neither of those five segments, like
Yeah. So everything is postponed. And that's when I found out that things can be postponed. The only problem is it bulks, so it becomes like more compounded. And when it becomes more compounded, there are like certain things that are even if they're high importance, but they're difficult tasks, they just move to the side. Like it's just like it's being moved. And you figure out everything can be moved, but then certain things that are actually things that if you would look at it from an importance perspective on the long run, they get pushed down towards high urgent things. So then
yeah.
everything becomes urgent, and then all the urgent stuff comes up.
Yeah, for me, the filter I put on
Yeah,
for doing new things is like the simple filter of I don't know who said it
yeah,
3 weeks ago with Fame, the with Jen on Brave Wise Women. If it's not a
yeah,
hell yes, it's a no.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
kind of the filter I've put on for taking on new things. It's gotta be either a hell yes or it needs to add some kind of
yeah.
uh, value,
Well,
immediate value.
I'm at the no point, definitely. I'm saying no more than I have ever said in my life at this point. And I don't feel the guilt feeling has left, but I've just decided I have to say no. And the problem is I'm still saying yes to too many things that I feel are really important. So gets back. I think you know the I um you've read what his name? I forgot his name, but he wrote about the Eisenhower box, like
Yeah,
having
yeah, the Eisenhower matrix.
yeah, the matrix. And I have accepted that, especially the delete and delegate, but the do and decide still, that's where I clash. So I've accepted the help that I do need to delegate to certain things, but the do and decide is still where I get stuck.
Hmm.
Because in the end, when you look at things, and this is also something that a lot of people don't know, there's the artist side and the entrepreneurial side, and they don't always coexist quite well. The artist side is all about feeling what you feel in the moment. The entrepreneurial side is structured, organized, and you have to do it systematically. And that's where there's still a lot of room for improvement for me, in the sense that I'm currently working in systems that I've learned. I've learned to become dependent on my calendar. I've learned to structure everything. But if there's something I would want to leave as quick as possible, it's the agenda.
The
It's
calendar.
like it's the calendar. It's like that's the one thing. Like we did a team building session this weekend.
Yeah, I saw photos.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, and that was like when the
what
trainer
would be
said
a
like throw the things you hate away or talk this take the things that you hate. Like that was one of the things that popped up. Like yeah, I really don't like being as structured as I'm structuring myself now. But for me at this point in life, it's kind of the only way that I can push through and achieve the things that I'm achieving.
what would be a reverse approach to the agenda look like if you, as it now you have your personal assistant filling in agenda and appointment, etc. What would a reverse approach look like in the agenda if you allocate blocks
If
first
you
to flexibility to accommodate for the artistic side,
the
and
creator
then
side, I wouldn't
yeah, the
say
creators.
the artistic, the
Okay,
creator
the
side.
creator side, yeah,
Yeah,
to allocate flexibility for that, and that's
I
non-negotiable.
wouldn't be
Let's
able to run a company, to be honest. I wouldn't. I just wouldn't. I mean, I could be in the board. That's a possibility, but I wouldn't be able to run a company. I wouldn't be able to be involved in the day to day. It wouldn't work. I could be an artist. I could be a full time creator, but I wouldn't be able to have the responsibility of making sure that everybody's salary is there at the end of the month, which isn't my task per se. I'm not the one that's paying the salaries, but still, I wouldn't feel comfortable that I would be
well,
responsible for that.
yeah, I think I'm just listening to what you're saying.
Yeah,
Like,
so it's something for people to understand. Like people often like one of the things that people often want is they either want to be the president or an entrepreneur. That's something like if you would ask like a younger version of me or somebody who's in their 20s, like or teenage years as a guy living in Suriname, those are kind of things they dream of, becoming an entrepreneur, becoming the president. And these are really sugar coated ideas. They're just not, you don't get to see the layers unless you experience it, and this is something you really have to think about. And I've been brought up with the idea that I'm an entrepreneur. I've been taught from like a young age to look at things, so I look at a lot of things different compared to other people, because from the young age I think from the age of 4 or 6. Every place I went, I was being told like, hey, this is what this company could do better. This is what they're doing well. This is what this place could be doing better. This is what this place does well. This is what the hotel could be doing better. This is what the hotel does well. This is what the car rental could be doing. This is what the car rental does well. This is what the restaurant is doing. And these are places that I would visit, and my dad would talk to me and say like, "Hey, see this? See how the waiter approaches this? That's actually good. That's something you want in your company. If they're not doing that, that's bad." So he was constantly guiding me through the process. So there's a lot of hidden
Yeah,
knowledge things that,
ideas and imprinted
and
like from your
yeah,
age.
that's it's there. But um, and I and on the other side, my mom told me like, go study
Go
this.
explore, go
No,
try
no,
stuff.
no, no. She told me like, go study. I don't want you to be a failure. I mean, I have a Chinese mother, so
Uh,
failure was not an option. Like she actually, when she came and when I was at the university in Tilburg, she traveled all the way from Suriname to the Netherlands to make sure that I finished my first year. Like that I didn't have any excuse that I was cooking
yeah,
or
there's no
cleaning my office.
distractions.
She
You
was
had
there. She brought
100%
me
go
she brought me
focus.
books on mind mapping on both sides of my brain how to use them. She forced me kind of into those books to understand it better, just to make sure that I ended up with my degrees. And we never spoke openly about the artistic side. She was always like, "Yeah, but you're not artistic enough." She also steered me away from studies that I wasn't serious enough for. So I wanted to study econometrics, and she was
That
like,
would
"Yeah,
have been an interesting study.
yeah." She was like, "No, you're not serious enough for that study." I was like, "Okay, okay, if you say so, fine." So
Take it at face value.
yeah, so I think those are kind of interesting things. And also one thing that I've been avoiding is the spiritual side, the spiritual energy. I've been uncomfortable with that one for quite some time.
That's something we haven't really explored much. We've done physical and mental, but spiritual isn't a topic we've dived deep in or found someone who kind of done that. So maybe that's something definitely for the coming months to look into. Uh, but yeah, February just started. We have our first month down, which was a very good first month, I would say, for to kick off the 2023 year. Um, and we're booked till I think the end of March already. I do think we should reach out to some locals again just to mix it up and get some grounding to our local circles, our local entrepreneurs, our local creators to see how that dynamic is going as well.
I do have some ideas for that as well, some guests that we can bring in. I do have a challenge for you as well, because people that have been tuning in consistently for the last 100 episodes have already realized that I'm much more of an extrovert and you're much more of an introvert, which often, like these sessions, they could go either way, but they sometimes lead towards a therapy session for me. So what I want to do for the next session, that will be just the two of us, I
Okay, the
want you
next.
to, yeah, I want you to come up with several topics that you want to discuss, which you feel for your own personal development are beneficial for you, or things that you are working on that we can discuss for that episode.
Okay, so personal topics, right?
Yeah,
Okay, personal topics. So it's gonna be a therapy session. Got
it could
it.
be. It could be a therapy session. I mean, we've done and Ask Me Anything for both of us. We've been through that. We've done
we
therapy
actually
sessions.
should do an
I
AME.
actually turned some guests into my therapist as well. So I mean, that's the thing about social conflicts, that definitely can happen. So I do feel I do want to challenge you, especially because I know I can be my extroverted side can take over these episodes a little bit too much to my liking. So that's why I want to turn it around for the next one.
No, that's fair. And yeah, talking about the AMA, we should do one of those again. I think it's been like 1.5 years since we did it. So we could, over the next few weeks, start introducing or collecting questions and, you know, save them up for when that time comes.
Awesome.
But yeah, with that being said, I think this was a good 100 episode. Uh, Really interesting looking back, like that we made it to 3 digits. 3 digits. You were
It's
asking
three
when we first
digits.
started, why are
It's
you
three digits.
numbering it like this, zero zero
Yes.
one? Like
Yes.
the goal was to hit 3 digits. Maybe we should have done zero zero zero
Zero
one.
zero zero. But we'll get there when we get there. In case you didn't know, I did a high school presentation on the Millennium Bug, where it was at the time computer, the dates were only 2 digits and it went to four
Yeah, yeah.
digits. So we will fix it just like the world fixed it back in 99 2000. So not a big worry, I guess.
There's a
Uh,
long way to go to 999 to even worry
there's a long
about
way
that.
to go. There's a very long way to go. We have some exciting things coming up. I have definitely committed to creating an interesting next step towards creating more content on the show, but also looking for partners and companies that we could work together. And on that note, I think it's interesting that we can note on our 100th episode, as we're kind of closing off, that there has been a spin off to Social Confoes, and we'll be doing another kind of podcast together.
Yeah, stay tuned. You'll know it when you see it. So
Yeah, it includes a couple more hosts, and it's gonna be a very limited and exclusive series. We're not gearing that one towards 1,000 episodes just yet, but it will be the opportunity for us to talk about a little bit deep dive into something else.
all right. With that being said, thanks for everyone for tuning in, celebrating number 100 with us. All 99 previous episodes have already been published on the website, so we are caught up. And actually, the descriptions have been expanded thanks to ChatGPT. I've been using that to
Oh
help.
wow! Oh wow! Oh wow! An extra plus for
Yeah,
AI
yeah.
right there. Awesome.
With that being said, see you next week in episode 101.
That was it for Social Confluence. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.